Now, we have our last session of the day and of the conference today now with Dr. Judith Martinez, and Ms. Susan D. Phillips. Sorry for pronouncing your name wrong, Judith. The topic today is upcycling your courses with open educational resources. So Dr. Judith Audubon Martinez is in is it Martinez? Why is it written Marinez at some point? Is it Martinez, Judith?
In Spanish is pronounced Martinez.
Martinez. Okay. Martinez is an associate professor at Atlantic Cape Community College in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where she teaches academic reading, writing, and college skills. Dr. Judith holds an MA in Applied Linguistics from Columbia University and an MA in Social Anthropology from Queen's University, Belfast, Northern Ireland. She serves for the U.S. Department of State as an English language specialist and for International TESOL as the Strand Coordinator for the Materials Development and Publishing Strand. Just to introduce you, I've worked with Judith and she's an amazing colleague. You remember me, Judith?
Of course, you're an amazing colleague.
Okay, and then we have Ms. Susan D. Phillips received her bachelor's degree in vocal music education from Westchester University in Pennsylvania, master's degree in applied linguistics, TESOL from the University of Pennsylvania, and associate's degree in digital design from Atlantic Cape Community College. Welcome to TEFL Kuwait Conference, Judith and Susan. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Rana, for your dedication and welcoming us to this conference. We are very happy to bring to you our experience of using open educational resources. So in this presentation, Susan and I will share with you the definition of OER and why to use it, and how you can find materials. So hopefully you'll have some takeaways from this, and then why and how we created it at our program for our English language learners. And we do want to share with you the lessons that we have learned from this from our students and from our faculty members. So Sue, I'll leave it to you.
All right. I have to say it's a very gratifying, very humbling honor to be a part of this. It's amazing, Rana, the skills that you have to pull together people literally from around the world all at once, you know, so we can talk about these important things. So thank you so much for that. At least in the States, and I'm not sure what the ideas are about OER or open educational resources are globally, and how that's working out in other countries. But just so we're all on the same page, that we understand kind of what we're doing here. When we talk about OER, as you can see on the screen, at least with the laws and the public domain, you know, that school teachers in the States have free access to use materials, and licensing gets into copyright laws and different things. And of course, different countries have different issues with that, you know, and so that's something that's important in the States. So OER, as you can see, allows for teachers and learning materials to be freely used in a variety of levels. So it can be totally freely accessible to people, or it can be just used as it's written and provided. You know, there's a whole range of permissions, so to speak, that go with it. The other thing I'll say just briefly is, certainly we all know the internet, and you can go on there and you can find free things and really useful media and realia that applies to your teaching. And that's not necessarily a strict definition of OER. We call that, in the States, we call that accessible materials, freely accessible. OER has all the licensing and the other issues along with it. It's more academically focused and created. But we use it all. I mean, I think as educators, we all think, hey, if it's good content, we're going to use it. And that's our point. So where do you find it? That'll be the next slide, if you want. So I'm going to, at the end of this slide, we'll connect you with a listing that we've made for links and resources that you can look at on your own that may apply specifically to your teaching situation. But they generally tend to fall into these 4 categories. So you have your favorite websites, you have your favorite content, of course. There are actual OER organizations that's what they do, that's who they are. But a lot of the colleges and universities have gotten into this as a separate unit of their university to provide their students with free or low cost, materials that are high quality. And then, of course, the libraries offer all sorts of what we call lib guides or library guides specifically about OER. And they provide all sorts of links and different things as well. And that's a huge amount of resources there if you just look at all the different lib guides. And then finally, the web resources that we're talking about. And this is the link at the bottom of that page. So we highlighted the language learning ones, of course, first, and then some of the specific ones that are solely for OER. And then as you'll see, there's several others associated with libraries. What I want to point out about the library ones, I didn't realize this until I put together this list. It's fascinating. As I looked at different parts of my country, you would see in a local library, usually associated with a college or university, for instance, Georgetown University, George Mason University, those surround Washington, D.C., and their lib guides tend to reflect their local jurisdiction, a lot of government resources and things like that. But if you go to lib guides from universities out on the West Coast and Hawaii and Alaska, you're going to get more native populations, different, native folk people to the country before it turned into the United States, as well as marine life, nature, environmental issues. So it's interesting. If you have an idea of something you really want, I would suggest going to a lib guide that's specifically in a region where that issue is of greater interest or going on in their region, and you'll find more materials that way. Okay, so the next one, we're talk about why. We all have our reasons. Certainly, this is what's going on here in New Jersey. There are many societal forces at play here. Mostly the students that come to our college, the financial strain of paying tuition and living and rent and car expenses and just life is very high right now, especially. So textbooks have traditionally gone up in price significantly over the years, and many faculty nationwide, as well as students, rebuff that or look for alternative means to paying such high prices, like $300 for a textbook sort of type of thing. So you can see the other difficulties that we have, but all of this was pressing on our students. And then the state of New Jersey actually passed a law. They're requiring.
Recording or a video?
I'm sorry, was that direct question? No? Okay. So you'll see the reference there to what our state legislature passed, that they're making it a law that we do this, because these issues are very much a part of our needs here at the state, and specifically we see them at Atlantic Cape. And then on a plus note is the idea of the customization. We have a lot of history here in New Jersey. It's one of the original 13 colonies before we became a country. So there's a lot of interesting things that our students don't know about and that we want to share with them. So that's an added thing we won't get in a textbook that's printed nationwide. So we can customize that content so that they know about and appreciate the surroundings. So yeah, thank you very much. So Judith's going to take over from here.
Hi, thank you, Sue. Just to give you a framework of who we are in terms of our program at our community college, we Our program is, we have about 150 students currently in our program, and we have 8 courses. So the courses that we converted, and we did this over basically about a 6-month period of converting all of our courses from traditional textbooks to 100% OER, with the exception of novels. Novels we still use in paper. Students can use them digitally if they would like to, but besides that, everything else was OER. So you can see here the breakdown. In the US, it's a credit system. So a credit is equal to 15 hours of instruction. So some of our courses are 3 credits and some of them are 6 credits. And the 6 credit courses are integrated skills with reading, writing, listening, speaking all together. So you can get an idea of that format. So it's been now about 1.5 years that we have been using OER. So we feel at this point, it's a good time to really reflect on what our methodology that we used and to share this with other educators. So the steps that we use to create this and to implement this, we broke down for you here in 7 steps. So with our other 2 colleagues, there are 4 of us in our department, we looked at our course maps and we reviewed our course maps to make sure that perhaps there needed to be some modification. So I can just show you here for one course what a course map, what I'm referring to here. So we broke down the different skills. So it's speaking, listening, reading, writing, and grammar. And then we also have this category of information literacy. So in each one, we reviewed what we expect for our students to be able to do by the end of the course, what is the content that's going to be covered. And when you do it in a systematic way from our lowest level to our highest level, we actually we've worked backwards. Where do we want them to be at the end of the program? And then we can go from there. So this is one of our intermediate level courses, just to give you an idea. So with reviewing the course maps and updating them, making sure that they are where we want to be, then we decided on themes. So I'll give you an example of a theme from one of our course layouts. So this is the final, basically the final product. So I'm just going to move down here, excuse me. So for example, one theme we chose was travel. So we tried to do topics, US history, environment, and then gender equality. So in each level, we chose specific themes and themes that would build upon each other, but were each unique because we have students that come in from the beginning of our program and then obviously go to the end. And then we have students that just come in at any certain point. So it was important that certain themes got built upon, especially to do with culture, to do with topics of the environment, topics that are very pertinent to society as a whole, but then other things that perhaps are a bit more fun, like the travel one. So this is from the themes, then we could then develop our content. And so we divided the content, each level up into, for each faculty member to do. And you'll see that in each one, the idea, because these are integrated courses, we needed to create a listening, reading, topics, and then how the grammar would fit in with those to be in an embedded course. And you'll see that in each one, you'll see perhaps there, for example, in this reading topic, there are 4, right? So we wanted to give, as we have many adjunct faculty, we wanted to give people choices. And this is the beautiful thing with OER. You don't just have to use that one listening that's in the textbook. You have a few different choices. Or perhaps if you have something that you have found that would fit into the theme, that's great, then use that. And this is the idea with this openness. But sometimes too much open is very overwhelming. So this is why we wanted to give our faculty a choice. So that is basically how we came about to have the finished product. in this. So you'll see that we did in that document I just shared with you, we did it in Google Docs. We found that to be a very, very helpful tool because if whatever I was producing, my colleagues could view it. And what we did was we had a pair, so we were paired up together. So perhaps I was responsible for one course and Sue was my partner. She would be able to look at my work and to give me feedback to say what she thought of the resources, what she thought of the flow of the work, and then that was very, very helpful. So that's basically how we got to step 4 and to step 5. And then at step 6, we did have this formal peer review process because this was an initiative, as Susan explained, coming down from the government and then coming to our administration at our college. So there was a formal peer review process where there were certain questions that we had to answer. So it was done in a methodical way. There was vetting done to it. And then our dean approved our work at the end also. And then in terms of the idea of being shared and being accessible to all persons in our department, we use the Google folder system. And this has been the way that our department has used this for, I would say, probably about 15 years or so that we can always share as we are using documents, and then with using hyperlinks. So in this case, as the document I showed you, that everything is on one place, and then people also can have the ability to add things. And then you can edit as you make your own document and change things to your own liking. So it's a very easy way to share resources. And it has worked for us. It did take time for us to develop this process, and we had a lot of great conversations about what we thought would work and wouldn't work. So it's now that we're explaining it, it seems very straightforward and easy, but at the time we were, it's a process. It is a process. But those meetings were very rich because again, that collaboration is really, really key to making the department move forward. So after a year and a half, we have feedback now. So Sue's going to share with you about from our faculty. Are you okay, Sue? I see the little technical difficulty. Hold on, please. All right, I'll carry on for now. Okay, so we did a survey. Oh, we did a survey asking our colleagues, again, this is our full-time faculty and the adjunct faculty, to give us insight. So in terms of the positive, you can see here, and the negative. So we definitely found from this that time was an issue, that it is really, really difficult in terms of for adjunct faculty to be so creative with, some of them just want a textbook and they just want to go, and they don't want to have to stop and to really develop their work. So we also found that, as in the writing, the person who wrote in the blue, the idea of having activities that will merge the skills together, and that was something that perhaps they needed a bit more help with. Our adjunct faculty don't necessarily have all the same training and experience that the full-time faculty have, so that needs to be also kept in mind when you're doing this. So this feedback has been very helpful because now Susan and I are bringing this back to our colleagues, and we're saying, okay, we need more training. And this has also been apparent in other departments, that adjuncts need more training, they need more support. We also have a committee at the college for mentorship now. So we are aware of this and we are working to resolve this so that these adjunct faculty feel more supported. And then in terms of the positive, faculty did like the idea of the choices, the freedom to do more creative projects, perhaps use things like project-based learning instead of just the formulaic textbook where you're like, oh, I hate this activity. So there was that that positive of it. And then when it comes to the students, we also developed a survey for our students, and we found that overwhelming, yes, the students were happy that they did not have to use a textbook. And some of them, though, 27.8, they had mixed feelings of this. So we were actually a little bit surprised. We thought it would be more blue, but you do have to think that we have from intermediate level, which is probably about a B1 level, up to about a C1 in our program, even maybe C2. So there is quite a range. And then regarding our student feedback, and this is about for 54 responses so that you can see for the percentages. We wanted to know how our students felt about reading online. So of course, because this is all, these are basically all activities done on the internet. Some of our faculty do print out, and it's not all done in the computers, especially at the lower levels. The faculty will print out activities, will print out questions for students to write, where at the higher levels, generally the faculty choose just to have students to use their computers, to use Google Docs to write things, or to use like Google Slide, Pear Deck, those sorts of activities where it's a responsive from the PowerPoint. But in terms of our students, we were happy to see that most students are happy with the online and unhappy with both. So that is good. I'm sorry, my son is watching the Chelsea game, and Chelsea obviously just scored if you're following football. Okay, sorry, a wee bit distracted there. And also about feedback, this is asking about students, what do they miss about not having a textbook? So you can see that 37% don't miss anything. 16% miss having everything in one place, which I think is kind of interesting, because one thing we did not mention is that we do use Blackboard, which is an LMS. Maybe perhaps you use Google Classroom or Moodle, but this idea that everything actually is in one place, but they're just in folders. So the layout is different. But it's our perception of things perhaps, and it's just in a different way. Some students, which this is 44%, they miss being able to write or take notes in a textbook. So again, this is perhaps that maybe more things need to be printed out. Maybe there needs to be a course booklet, which is an idea that would help and support those students. And then of course, having physical pages. So this feedback can really help us to make improvements to our program. And then we asked them just other things that they felt to be true. So we had thought, because there is quite, there is research to say that, and just our own experience of being on Zoom for so many hours, that it hurts our eyes, that we feel perhaps using a device can be very tiring. But this wasn't, so we did have, between never and rarely, we were surprised with this response. I can't remember what I read. Yeah, so this, again, it wasn't a huge response there. So in a sense, that's good, because research is coming out that perhaps we're not able to recall as well. But that didn't seem to be in this context. Getting distracted, we thought that would be much, much higher. We thought we would have a lot more greens and yellows in that one, but not so much. I have trouble using. This is great because it just shows how much our students have grown. I would really think that the pandemic really helped a lot of our students become much more computer savvy. And then I finished my work easily. This is great that so many of our students responded in such a positive way. So this feedback was, I think, very comforting. And then we asked them to have some open, give us some feedback. We used here red to say like, this is the negative, and the green is they were happy, kind of like a stoplight. That was our thinking here. But you can see here in the red that, perhaps there's some ways with the learning that makes it difficult. Like this student, she expressed with a lower level because they want to be able to physically see the word. So again, that concept of having it on paper. The student just preferred to have with textbooks. And then the third student here, that again, this idea that she remembers, or he, remembers better when it's on paper. And then the fourth student here, again, this idea of navigating, which I do think that if you're a new student, using an LMS can be a little bit overwhelming. So that I can understand. And I think students that have more language skills and more experience being in college, that comes with comfort and use. The green, which is, as I said, the positive, students saying that it's easier, they like that everything is in one place, they don't forget their homework, they think things are much more organized. Like this one, I do not need to use my textbook because I can find any information on the internet. So again, being very used to using resources, and then the idea of helpfulness. So these were some, we had a lot of students wrote, as I said, we had 54 students respond to the survey, and they were very much repetitive on these themes for the negative and for the positive. So this really helps us with our presentation, of doing this presentation and of seeing what we want to change. So Sue.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go back. You had it, Sue. Yes.
All right, thank you. That's one thing I love about teaching. We always have to be flexible and even use low-tech methods along with the high-tech. So great marching on there, Judith. That's what we do. So lessons learned. I think the big thing, and Judith certainly emphasized this, was take the time, do it right, don't rush. And that seems like such a simple, obvious thing. And yet, we have deadline pressures, we have new semesters starting. So it's very difficult sometimes to adhere to this, but the collaboration is really just vital and the core to this, and that just takes time, as we all know. So along with that, obviously the collaboration, as we look back, our department, our faculty, we're a small unit at our college. So we tend to collaborate, and I think in the field that we're all in, that's a natural part of our process of teaching. So of course, I think working with our colleagues, it's reflected there also. But what we found was that was the key. That was the way to really broaden our availability of materials, our ideas for lessons and activities, and all of it. So collaboration is really key. Bringing in our case, we have part-time instructors along with the full-time instructors, bringing them in so they're knowledgeable of it, or giving their input, would be a helpful thing as well. And then finally, just mentoring, especially the part-time instructors. Oftentimes they're content experts, but they don't necessarily have the teacher training and the pedagogy and all that. So what happens is some of this, I think a seasoned trained teacher can figure it out and do it. proficiently and even better. But oftentimes with our part-timers, we need to really guide them along the process. And that was our big takeaway. So thank you for that.
So at this time, we would be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has, or comments. Perhaps you use OER and you would like to comment, or if you have a question, the PowerPoint we can share with you in the chat box.
Any questions? Anyone? Maybe in the chat box. Can you check, Judith? Check the comments.
We got the comment from from Ferret, and
Yeah.
we will add, or Sue maybe already has added his
Right.
link, that link to the master sheet.
Yes, both suggestions he gave are in there, and I want to thank him so much. That's very helpful.
Yeah. And so I don't know if there's anybody that's using open educational resources, but I will say for, I know certain parts of the world, the accessibility to textbooks, to books is very, very difficult. So this is a great opportunity for equity with the amount of wealth of resources that is accessible. So some of the websites that is on the list are really rich in literature-based fiction. You have short stories, you have whole novels. So if you are working with a population that doesn't have the money to buy, or there's just not, like in many parts of the world, in Latin America that I've worked with, in Mexico and in Brazil, libraries don't exist. So again, it's equity for all peoples. So this is another reason why I think open educational resources is really, really, really important.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you so much for joining us, Judith and Susan.
It's our pleasure.
It was very informative, of course. Open educational resources are really an amazing field. And as you said,